Hey there. Quick heads up before we dive in. My new book, Connections That Count: How to Transform Your Network into Influence, Leadership, and Career Growth, is available for pre-sale right now on Amazon. If you've ever wondered how to build your relationships that actually move your career forward, this book is your roadmap. Reserve your copy today and be among the first to get it when it drops on November 13th. Just search Connections That Count by Tim Newman on Amazon. Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence, a podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results: communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on your journey to becoming a powerful communicator. Have you ever been in a meeting where you're talking and suddenly you notice three people are on the phones? Or how about at a networking event where you're telling a story and someone yawns right in the middle of your sentence? That sinking feeling that you're losing the room, that's what we're talking about today. The problem isn't that you're boring or that your content is bad. It's that you're having a one-way conversation while missing the invisible feedback loop that's happening right in front of you. The good news? Reading a room isn't some magical social talent you're either born with or without. It's a set of practical observation skills that anyone can learn. I'm going to show you how to spot the 4 key behavioral patterns that reveal exactly what's happening in any group situation. And you'll walk away with techniques you can use in your very next meeting or conversation to stay connected and in control. First, let's start by debunking the biggest myth about social intelligence, that it's innate. People who seem to just get the social dynamics aren't psychic, they're just better observers. They've learned what to look for, and more importantly, what those observations actually mean. You're not trying to become a mind reader. You're learning to recognize patterns. Specifically, we're focusing on 4 universal behavioral cues that give you immediate feedback on your audience's engagement level. First is phone checking. When someone pulls out their phone during your presentation or conversation, it's the most obvious sign of disconnection. But here's what most people miss. It's not always about rudeness. Often, it's a signal that you've lost their attention, and they're seeking stimulation elsewhere. The key is noticing whether it's one person discreetly checking the time, which might be harmless, or multiple people fully engaging with their devices, which means you've lost the group. The second is yawning. We often take yawning personally, but it's actually more about energy drain than boredom. In a team meeting, yawning can indicate that the room's energy has dropped, often because you've been talking too long without involving others or because the content has become too dense. A single yawn might mean someone didn't sleep well. Multiple yawns across the room, that's your signal that the energy needs some shifting. Third is fidgeting. This includes tapping pens, shifting positions frequently, playing with jewelry, or constant leg bouncing. Fidgeting typically shows restlessness or anxiety. In an interview setting, if your candidate starts fidgeting when you ask certain questions, it might indicate discomfort with the topic. In a team meeting, widespread fidgeting suggests people are ready to move on or need more interaction. And fourth is blank stares. These glassy-eyed looks where people are physically present but are mentally checked out. This is often misinterpreted as boredom, but it's more frequently a sign of confusion or lack of understanding. When people can't follow your logic or don't understand your point, their brains essentially shut down rather than struggle to keep up. Now, the trick to spotting these cues without making people uncomfortable is to use your peripheral vision. Instead of staring directly at individuals, scan the room. Notice patterns rather than focusing on specific people. Look for clusters of behavior. If 2 people start fidgeting around the same time, that's more significant than one person doing it alone. But here's the crucial point. Simply noticing these behaviors is useless if you don't understand what they actually mean in context. Observation without interpretation is just data collection. And this is where emotional intelligence comes into play. Reading a room isn't about memorizing illicit behaviors and their meanings. It's about understanding the underlying emotional states those behaviors represent. Let's break down what each cue signifies in different contexts, because the same behavior can mean very different things depending on the situation. In team meetings, blank stares often indicate confusion rather than boredom. When you're presenting complex information and you see those glassy eyes, it's usually a sign that people have hit a comprehension barrier. They're not bored, they're lost. And this is your cue to pause and ask, would it help if I walk through that last point again? Or, let me put this another way. The mistake most presenters make is seeing blank stares and they start talking faster, which only deepens the confusion. At networking events, phone checking often signals overwhelm rather than rudeness. Social situations can be draining for many people, and glancing at a phone might be a coping mechanism for social anxiety. If you're talking to someone who keeps checking their device, it might mean they need a moment to recharge rather than that you're not interested in you. Instead of taking it personally, you could say, I know these events can be intense. Would you like to grab a coffee and continue our conversation somewhere quieter? During interviews, fidgeting usually indicates nervousness rather than disinterest. A candidate playing with their pen or shifting in their seat is likely anxious about making a good impression. This is actually valuable information. It shows they care about the opportunity. Recognizing this allows you to help them relax by saying something like, I know interviews can be nerve-wracking. Please know this is just a conversation. This not only helps them perform better, but also shows your emotional intelligence as an interviewer. The danger of misinterpreting cues without context is that you'll make the wrong adjustments. If you see yawning in a meeting and assume boredom, you might try to be more entertaining when people really need is a 5-minute break or a change in topic. If you see phone checking and assume rudeness, you might become defensive when the person actually just needs you to be more concise. Let's do a quick exercise to practice this. Imagine you're leading a team meeting about a new project. You notice Sarah keeps looking at her phone. Mark is yawning, and several people have blank stares. Based on emotional intelligence principles, what's likely happening? Sarah might be waiting for an important message about another project. Mark might have been up late with his kids. The blank stares probably mean your explanation of the new workflow isn't clear. Instead of getting frustrated, you'd address the comprehension issue first, then check if anyone needs to step out briefly. The pattern here is moving from observation to interpretation to appropriate response. And now that you understand what these cues actually mean, let's talk about how to respond effectively in real time and what to do when you see them. Remember, the goal isn't to perform dramatic shifts that call attention to yourself, but to make subtle adjustments that bring the room back to you naturally. When you notice the phone checking, the most effective response is often to create an immediate reason for engagement. So instead of getting louder or more animated, try asking a direct question to someone who's drifting. Sarah, I'd love your perspective on this point. Works because it's inclusive rather than confrontational. Or shift to a more interactive format. Let's break it into pairs for 2 minutes to discuss this concept. The key is creating a natural transition that makes putting phones away feel more like the obvious choice. For yawning, you need to address the energy drain directly. If you see multiple people yawning, it's usually a sign that you've been in presentation mode for too long. And the simplest fix is to change the physical dynamic. Say, let's all stand up for a moment and stretch. Or, why don't we move over to the whiteboard for this next part? Changing people's physical position automatically changes their mental state. If standing isn't practical, even switching from slides to a quick discussion can reset the energy. And when you observe fidgeting, your response should be calming and grounding. People fidget when they feel restless or anxious, so adding more stimulation will backfire. Instead, slow your pace slightly, lower your voice rather than raise it, and use more pauses between your points. You might say, let me pause here because this is important, which gives people a moment to reset. In one-on-one situations like interviews, acknowledging the tension can be powerful. I know this can feel like a lot to process. Shows empathy while helping them relax. Blank stares require clarification and re-engagement. When you see those glassy eyes, it's usually a comprehension issue. The worst thing you can do is talk faster or add more information. Instead, pause and check for understanding. Say something like, I want to make sure I'm explaining this clearly. What questions are coming up for people? Or use a concrete example, such as, let me make this practical. Here's what this looks like in our daily workflow. The goal is to bridge the gap between abstract concepts and tangible application. Building this observation-reaction feedback loop takes practice, but it becomes intuitive over time. The sequence is always notice the pattern, interpret its meaning based on context, then implement the appropriate response. What's fascinating is that as you get better at this, you'll start anticipating these moments rather than just reacting to them. Developing the habit of constant, subtle room scanning is like developing any muscle. It feels awkward at first, but becomes automatic. And the key is to make your scanning brief and periodic rather than constant staring. Glance around the room every minute or two, looking for clusters of behavior rather than focusing on individuals. Notice if multiple people are showing the same cue around the same time. That's when you know it's a room-wide issue rather than an individual quirk. These skills aren't about manipulation, they're about connection. When you respond appropriately to the cues you're seeing, you're showing people that you're paying attention to their experience, not just delivering your content. And what happens with regular practice is that this process transforms from conscious effort to natural intuition. At first, you'll be mentally checking off cues like a checklist. Okay, I see phone, so I need to ask a question. But after a few weeks of intentional practice, you'll start noticing these patterns automatically, and your responses will feel more fluid and natural. And the confidence that comes from understanding group dynamics is profound. Instead of that nagging anxiety about whether people are engaged, you'll have actual data. You'll know when you're connecting because you'll see the signs. People leaning forward, making eye contact, nodding along. And you'll know when you're losing them because you'll recognize the early warning signs before the entire room checks out. This awareness changes your role in any group situation. You become an intentional, responsive communicator rather than someone just delivering information. You start anticipating needs rather than reacting to problems. In team meetings, you'll notice when the energy is dipping and know exactly how to bring it back. In networking situations, you'll recognize when someone needs a different approach and adjust accordingly. The most valuable shift is moving from self-consciousness to others' awareness. Instead of worrying about how you're coming across, you're focused on how your message is being received. This is the foundation of genuine connection, the ability to tune into others while staying true to your message. Here's one simple technique to try in your next meeting. For the first 5 minutes, make it your only goal to notice one engagement cue from someone in the room. Don't worry about responding perfectly, just practice spotting the pattern. Maybe you'll notice when someone starts fidgeting or when eyes glaze over during a particular point. The immediate impact of this practice is that it shifts your focus from internal anxiety to external observation. And that alone will make you feel more confident and present. And once you start recognizing these cues, you'll naturally begin responding to them without overthinking. Start with this small, manageable practice of intentional observation. The more you do it, the more these skills will become part of your natural communication style. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start paying attention to the conversation that's already happening right in front of you. That's all for today. Remember, we're looking for progress, not perfection. Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Formula for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care. Before you go, don't forget Connections That Count, How to Transform Your Network into Influence, Leadership, and Career Growth is available for pre-sale on Amazon right now. It's packed with practical tools to help you turn your relationships into real results. Grab your copy today and be ready when it officially releases on November 13th. Head over to Amazon and search Connections That Count by Tim Newman.